Hello everyone and welcome to your horoscope for the week of August the 15th, 2022. This is a really powerful week because we have so very many different energies in the sky, but fortunately, so to speak, all of these energies are acting, even if they might seem that they're acting against us, they're acting really in our favor. They are showing us different types of truth about ourselves, about where we stand in life, where we stand in society, but not necessarily just about the present. This is about also the future. So this is again one of those weeks where our future plans, our ideals, our aspirations for the future, even how we see ourselves, how we see our lives, who is it that we see it with, in the future, short but also the longer term future, can very quickly, radically, suddenly change. But this is where this change also needs to come from within us. And before I get into the details, I would just like to say that this is also a week, a period, just like in 2021 when we're under the dominance of Saturn squaring Uranus. This conversation is not yet very exact, but we can still feel it. And also this conversation is highlighted by the Sun opposing Saturn. And this opposition of the Sun and Saturn is very important because this also means, a T-square that was also part of the full moon configuration in Aquarius that we had last week. So this Sun opposing Saturn speaks about the archetype of the father and the very structure of our lives. Saturn in the sign of Aquarius is ultimately the structure, which is not just about the present but also about the future, even the longer term future, of where it is that we're taking our lives, ourselves, as human beings, as souls, as identity that we are aspiring to become in the future. So we need a lot of action. But before action, we need a lot of epiphanies, realization, and a lot of reality check. Exactly the Sun opposing Saturn. Everything that is not available to us, everything that is no longer us, everything that we deem in any way, shape, sense, and form, it doesn't matter how, unfit for us to either go towards or take with us into the future. Well, this is one of those weeks where very tough decisions await us. Now, first of all, let me examine this Sun opposing Saturn and squaring Uranus, of course, but mostly Sun opposing Saturn. From a rather philosophical perspective, a conversation that I had with a very dear friend of mine, someone who is my divine muse, where we examined the archetypes of the Sun and Saturn. Both of these are masculine and fatherly archetypes. According to the ancients in the age of Ptolemy, the Sun was seen as the father, a father because the creativity, because of the attitude, and because of what fatherhood meant in that era, where, the father and the son relationship and what the father passed on to the son was not all that much empirical. Saturn in the sign of Aquarius, not all that much based on empirical mental knowledge, not even a very tough mental self-discipline, but rather the instinct of it. The son learned from the instinct. The father incorporated the son, child's daughter, of course. But I'm just philosophizing, that's why I'm using the sun symbol, even as the child, the inner child. But of course, apply this in any way, shape, and form for your gender. So the learning was more instinctual because of the life experience. And because both the father and the child trusted in the intelligence of the instinct, of the intelligence within them, of the intelligence of nature and the divine, of the world and the dimension that they lived in. Ancient Greece, for example, ancient Rome. Faith and everything, even parenting, even what parenting and responsibility and diligence meant, were something different. This is where life was based on the adventure. Let's take the modern father, Saturn, the Jungian father, in Jungian astrology. Or, in modern astrology, the archetype of the father and what imprint the father left on us, we usually look at Saturn, really. Also Capricorn, the ruling planet of Capricorn, That's very much the structure of the family father. But this more modern father, Saturn, is based on very profound life experience, on the empirical knowledge and the experience that they saw their fathers, their families, their teachers, their mentors, their bosses, their authoritative figures enacting. And that's different. That's not necessarily instinct. That's ego. That's where the child is perhaps sometimes overprotected, because the child is not seen as equal, not incorporated in the experience because of their protection or because protection. This is where, why do you have to study, I don't know, roughly 10 years plus to be a surgeon? Even those people who have this instinctual divine calling, for the sake of protection. Gatekeepers are for protection. Saturn in Aquarius, everything for our protection. But that cuts away the passion. That cuts away instinctual intelligence. That cuts away the passing down of the soul. Because the Ptolemaic father, sun, the luminary body, as the father archetype, it passed down a bit of soul as well. Because the young child, let's say, regardless father or son, even though their lives were ultimately different. Let's say the son, because that's a bit more relevant in the example I want to use. Well, they were included in the hunting experience or any kind of labor, any kind of life experience from a very early age. And they had to provide for their household, whatever the labor, the chore meant. And they could get hurt. And in hunt, they could lose their lives. A lot could go wrong. And everyone was aware of it. They were aware of it. They were not silly. But their life view, their world view, their profound understanding of nature and the divine and the universe, their philosophies, their spirituality were not meant to be protective at all. Why protection? The divine protects faith, protects virtue, protects purity, protects. When it does not protect, then it is when we trust the divine that there was a scheme there that we just could not understand. The dog, the animal, nature within nature, parents lose their children as well. Human species is no exception. We cannot individualize this. As a philosophy, it's easy to say, of course, I know. Yet, this was how they lived. They made it easy for themselves even when it happened, because it was natural and normal, and even included in spiritual. This modern Saturn stripped the child from all that experience. For some people, life doesn't even begin after 18. As responsibility, as experience, as what it is that we need to do, etc., etc. So this is where all of us, collectively and individually as well, and not even split up into zodiac signs, because this energy is deeply psychological, so that means all of us are living it. And where do we surrender great protection and stability? for the adventure and the lived experience. Because it is the lived experience, the sun, screaming at us, that ultimately creates the true divine expression of whatever it is that we need to live. Feel through the heart, Leo. Job, adventure, lover, soldier, whatever role that may be your divine mission, but live it passionately, give yourself to it. Saturn says, son, you cannot do this because we don't live in that day and age where that is possible. In this day and age, that is seen as radical, as careless, as reckless, as savage, as vile, as uncivilized. The opposition between the two planets, which is true, which is not. If both of them are part of our soul matrix, because our ancestors lived in the Ptolemaic world, so we have the genes and the info, we know how to live naturally. And Saturn, but we also lived in this modern day and age where we were, let's say, overprotected and enslaved by protection. No problem. Where does the conflict resolve? The square they hold. Let me show you on the screen. This is where the square, you see, they hold, the T-square, with the North Node in the sign of Taurus and Uranus in the sign of Taurus. And this is where the soft shows, as Saturn also squaring still Mars. But we'll take Mars out of the picture for now, because that is where Uranus is the key player here. Why? Well, ultimately, what does it do? Let's look at Venus in the heart. So the ruling planet of this is actually, would we not agree that it's actually the sun? So the sun is our creative, it's an energy of the self, the ego ultimately, but the ego within nature and the natural way the human ego was designed by nature to be, because nature is also a psychologist, of course. Well, now it is that we discover how beautiful it is, how harmless it is, that it's an art, that it is a divine play that we show to our creator. That is our ego, a mask, a divinely, how should I say, decorated mask that we offer to our creator. Like, look, this is what I've done with the core that you have given me. This is my spiritual self and the spiritual self living the human life. This is my work of art. That's beautiful, that's natural, that's nature. That's the good type of ego expression where you're just an artist with the self. Yes, like the divine is. Now the bad type of expression is when you think you're a superhero. Oh yes, I've got it, I'm good, that's when you're already defeated. Why? I'll tell you just a little bit later on in this horoscope. But first, let me finish this idea. This Uranus in nature makes the compromise. Let's be a little bit both. We live in modern society that is already collapsing, changing profoundly. Saturn is changing. We must understand that Saturn has a tough time. It cannot provide us the security it used to. So we feel this internally as a sense of anxiety and not knowing the future, not sensing anything, blind to the future, where all we know is a great adventure. But the sun, the ruler here with Venus, Venus is very important in Taurus. She's the ruler of Taurus as an energy. So this is where Venus is also important. The value, the love, everything that has to do with the heart is now exploding in a positive way. It is changing the collective value. It is guiding us back to love, to passion, to unity, to truly being able to embrace one another, where our differences are seen as value and not something that separates us anymore. Now this, what I said, understand it the opposite way, running at the same time in the world collectively out there, because we're given the choice. Do you want to see love? Do you want to see the opposite of love? So that's why it's dichotomous Aquarius, Saturn, both. but a lot of people are seeing love. And another aspect which I want, so I'll move this to when it gets more exact. The other aspect that I would like to show you guys, and I think I'm going to leave it at this, no, 18th of August. The Sun in Leo holds two quincunxes with Pluto and Neptune. That's a yacht formation. The finger of God is pointing at the Sun in Leo at the heart. At 25 degrees of and 27 minutes of the sign of Leo, the divine is pointing at this. That means a big moment of truth and synchronicity given by Pluto, our own unconscious, our own truth, our own inner realization, our epiphanies, our empowerment. The power that we took back by loving ourselves, our reality, loving each other, and not what we are told to love. The adverts, the media, the technology, the fake, the gold, the glitter, the drag out there. This is where all of us are turning passionately against that. The drag, the false rainbow, if that makes sense for some people. Against the fake values, the toxicity, and we're returning to nature. We're just returning to love. All that we need is love to respect each other and nothing more. We don't need to bow to each other or be so careful around each other. All we need to do is not take it seriously, personally, and love. Focus on the love, not on the negative sparks and the temptation, on the impurity, the toxic animal within us. Let's focus on love, on everything that we have in common. And this is another thing that I would like to mention, which has so much to do with this energy, and this might be playing out in your life as well. The one way I see this heavy Aquarian Saturn energy playing out, but this is where this builds itself on last year's nodal transit in the North Node Gemini, and the eclipses in Gemini, because that was the energy that taught us what interhuman connection means, what soul connection means, the simplicity of it. And now with the North Node in Taurus, we're executing it. Taurus is the throat, the voice, so we're speaking it. What are we speaking? Now, what I heard, and this is where I experienced people say to each other, not you're good, you're this and that, not the praises, not the honey, nothing of that. So they don't feed the ego, the sun. What they say to each other, look, I'm so much like you, and that's it. No compliment, no criticism. I'm so much like you. I feel like you. I see it like you. I see myself in you. When this is said, you can imagine that the unconscious minds, the souls even, of those two people immediately handshake. An alliance is formed, because that's the password. Not the word that I'm like you or I'm similar to you or whatever. The feeling of it, the truth of it, that we are also one another. All we need to do is know where to look, and we're all one another. Telepathy, empathy, figuring each other's thoughts out, anticipating each other's reactions, knowing profoundly each other like the self, becomes so easy. And this is where we're applying it. And I see people just finding one another, and they're not saying anything, they're just saying, I'm like you. And immediately the connection is made. And immediately the story takes off in a way where the ego is what it's always should be, an artist's canvas, and not anything else. Not an inferno, not a black hole, not something destructive, but something playful, where the colors can be added. This is where I see people telling other people, teach me, show me, and they agree and they show one another things. And both of them, all of them, get richer and richer and richer as this You can imagine, economically speaking, the nodal square and Uranus at the north node. It's like a mush. The values, like a tornado, old, new, futuristic, from the ancient past, distant past, are like a mixer in one another, like a tornado. We don't even know what to think and feel, yet we still know. We still know from that chaos, we still know. Because the eye of the storm is the eye of our hearts, and it knows. The heart knows true value. So as the world out there, perhaps materially, is getting poorer, we are getting richer and richer and richer. More love, more connections, more I'm like you, you're like me. That's union. That's alliance. That's healthy. As I said, all the differences are values. This is where partnerships or people who find one another don't want the other to change. They actually want the other to be even more like the other, because they identify that it's not what makes us similar, the handshake, that's our greatest strength. It's the handshake where we support that which is different from us. The support, where even the interest is not there. You just support your ally, no matter what the unconditionality of it. This is what creates something beautiful. Again, going back to Venus. And this is what the two quincunx is, pointing to the sun, to the heart of hearts, the divine. From without, let's say, even though we can't say without, because Neptune's retrograde, so it's still within, and Pluto retrograde, pointing to the sun. Your realization that the divine is with you, within you, around you, and it's there in synchronicity. It's there with everything. And you understand that this is not about you, how great you are. This is how great the divine is. So your ego, I don't know, melts away like butter. It's been a most favorable sense. Yet, quincunx is quincunx. Pluto is mental illness. People who are very deluded. Neptune adds to this 10 times. Neptune believe in this even more. So I'm pretty sure that there are going to be very bad examples out there when someone's twisted, egotic illusion gets to a level which shocks us all, or shocks them, or whatever. Yes, absolutely. For someone, for some very twisted people out there, it's like a profound and twisted misinterpretation of the self. Because quincunx, we can see the same energy as the divine telling us, you're good, you're great, you're my best creation, you're my champion, go do. But the divine is not that. The divine is love. So what does love do? You see the greatness of the divine within its gift, because you feel unworthy even, the quincunx. The worthiness of the unworthiness. The divine is a great architect. It is truly a painter, a great divine artist who likes to mix colors. Who are we to say what purity, what passion, what honesty, what truth looks to him in our eyes? Because this is not about the standard. You cannot ask a holy scripture what your unique relation with the divine is. That's you to seek all your incarnations and forms and whatever dimension you would be in, but it's yours to seek. Who you are to the divine, who is the divine to you. This is like a romance and a love story which will never end. Yet, that's absolutely fine. That's one nuance of this energy. The other nuance, there is those things which every living being has to respect as a diligent co-creator and as a guardian of the great creation of the kingdom, so to speak. And that is where Saturn, all of us are the Saturn. When something twisted comes from the self that would threaten the harmony of creation, of course we block it. Of course we sweep it out, purify it out. But when something truly inspirational and purely harmless, a divine play, like a piece of art, enters our heart, our minds, our souls, our feelings, are we not invited almost to give birth to it? So this is where we also need to analyze, contemplate, see what the divine guidance is telling us, because there's so many ways where we can interpret it. Neptune, we have to interpret it the way of the truth of the heart, and that's not never the ego. That's not the ego, as the enlightened ascended grandmasters showed us in all religions. All religions, everyone, every religion, mainstream especially, knows so well what I'm saying means, because that's the essence of it. Anyway, so I'm so sorry for my mini philosophical take on things, and I'll try to get to more practicality now. The Sun opposing Saturn, practically, Sun ego Saturn, future, but communication, paperwork, and everything that you still need to do. Air element, every air sign can have papers to it, communication authorities, emails, documents, negotiations, etc., etc. In this sense, you have to do what you have to do, the reality check, the compromise, the Sun. Whatever, it doesn't matter how it makes your ego feel. We go to the other aspect, which is very important. Mercury trining Uranus is higher octave. The info is there, the chance is there, the opportunity is there, the knowledge, whatever it is, it's there. Mercury in the sign of Virgo, practicality. If Mercury is not as comfortable as it can get in its home sign of Virgo, where it's practical, where it should overthink for once, where its analytical qualities are divine blessings and not the opposite, and it even gets an empowerment from Uranus, a brainstorm, a higher intelligence, the higher mind guiding, confirmed by, let's say, other people, an invitation, an offer, an opportunity, a travel, whatever, something, communication, or Taurus, earth energy. It can lead to something material, a transaction, a connection, a synchronicity. Your client, is he, she just a client, or is he, she a future who knows what in your life? This is the type of energy. So the reality check is there. It may be hard. For example, Sun opposing Saturn. I'm not going into the future with you. You is a person who you deeply love, but your mission needs you to separate. Love, Sun in Leo, is there, but also the mission. It's a choice, but there's no right or wrong. There is no right or wrong. You need to sometimes make these decisions yourself. Your job or that person who you love. Your mission, your divine mission, or you living your childhood dream. Blessing comes, but sometimes we need to choose which one we prioritize. It's a matter of timing, priority. Saturn retrograde, we are the masters of our own time. We have to make the schedule, and no one can make us an exception from that yet. Quincunx, finger of God, Yod. Where is the, let me seek out the Yod. Where are you? So yes, here, the divine senses guidance, if we know how to interpret it with the heart. The heart is our eye now, a big eye, and that is our heart space. And also Uranus, it sends us info in any way, shape and form, including instinctually, five senses. Taurus, yes, for example, yes, you're that good enough, pretty enough, strong enough, intelligent enough, this and that enough. Or for some people, this is the surprise of their lifetimes. You know that you want something badly and you're very good at it. It's part of your mission, but you know it's 10 years work, so you're crying inside because you're starting it and you know you're not gonna quit, but it's 10 years work and you're crying. Something happens and it quantum leaps you 9 years. And when I say quantum leap, value-wise, experience-wise, you don't know your quantum learning abilities. You're not the only person who learned things overnight. I personally saw that, and not once in my life, where people, and sometimes even I was included, and when I went to uni, you learn things overnight. The want, the desire, I'm gonna learn this, or I'm gonna invent it, improvise it. And that energy at this time creates professionals who, wow. Anyway, so let's go and look at another energy where there is also disillusioning, because at the very, very end of the week, so 21, this Mercury here, Mercury at 24 of Virgo, is opposing Neptune at 24 of Pisces. Again, this points to the fact that, you know, the Saturn opposing Sun, that's a reality check, but this Mercury opposing Neptune, it's also disillusioning you. Yes, she doesn't love me. Yes, I'm not gonna be, I don't know, an actress in this theater. Yes, I'm not gonna be a multinational superstar. But I am something that much more special. Maybe I am a multi-dimensional, international superstar for my mom, for my dad, for my local community, for those few people who are everything to me. And if this is your reality check, this is the best disillusioning. Because that means you're full of love. That means you've done everything right. Because that's what life, destiny, the divine work, a role as your ego is about. To use your ego, right, ego, and make the lives of people of your choosing, or by destiny, or by fate, or whatever, happy. Project light on them. Joy, happiness, laughter, share, be part of their lives, and by all means shine. Be the comedian, be the superstar, be the singer, be the actor in their lives. Because they're the kind of public who will never let you down. And this goes for all of us in any kind, actually, situation of our lives. Let's be grateful for the role that we can fulfill, and we are getting stronger at that. Let's leave the silly aspiration and the disillusionment, and let's be grateful for what we have and what we're already doing. And we, regardless of how uncertain Uranus makes our future vision, in our heart of hearts we still know where we're going, as a feeling, just as a feeling, blind as vision, as mathematics, as numbers, figures, but as a feeling. Our hearts are not blind, our hearts are found. Venus holding a harmonious celestial conversation with Jupiter, a trine, Jupiter the head, Venus in the heart. The two know, and they have the same direction. Mercury was there, transited, so it left a path for Venus, a path of knowledge, a path of synchronicity, a path of info. The heart gets more and more into its knowledge and belief. We are purifying as well. Yes, outside the world is uncertain economically, financially, politically. Especially the Saturn is politicians, our leaders, kings, corporations, bosses, managers. That's Saturn, and it's being targeted. What does Saturn do? Put on the show. And I must say that this is a period where politicians are ruthless to each other. The show right now is why, because Capricorn is world stage. And Quincunx Sun. Capricorn Quincunx Sun. Some people who, yes, made mistakes or committed great acts of corruption and immorality are going to be made examples of how harshly they're going to be punished. Maximum penalty, whatever. But this is, of course, just a facade. Because everyone is just as guilty as them. The sacrificial lambs, we're going to be seeing this in our local politics, on the world stage, internationally, in the wars, in the conflicts, and also militaristic action. Because Mars in the sign of Taurus. And I'll speak about this just a little bit later on. So yes, the facade, the show is there, and that's confusing. That's sometimes even humiliating. Because that's not what we need. But it's part of the Plutonian show. And of course, the Pluto return in the US. And everything in this 2022 year hit, regardless what kind of celestial conversation it was. Eclipse, full moon, new moon, lunation or otherwise, it hit the US one way, shape or form. So yes, that's a symbol of democracy. So that changes radically, first of all. And Mercury opposing Neptune, revelations, disclosures. But the kind of disclosures collectively, you need to have eyes to see. Because it's there. You just need to open your eyes. But ultimately, again, the delusion, us lying to ourselves, us helping other people, tricking us and deceiving us, may those be gurus, books, religion, etc. This is where we truly, truly need to listen just to the divine. Regardless of what that means personally, may the divine mean for you Christ consciousness, the Creator, your guardian angel, the higher self, whatever feeds you. And this reminds me of something I need to mention now. Whatever feeds you, that's your best friend. That's your truth. That's what you should be listening into. Now, food. We need to feed ourselves, right? Because that's our Saturn. The first condition of Saturn. Feed your being. We know how to feed our material selves, even though in Virgo season we'll have different lessons about what healthy eating, food and nourishment means. Anyway, I'll get to that in later on, Virgo season. But how do we feed the mind? How do we feed the spirit? How do we feed the emotion? How do we feed our connection with the divine? Regardless if we find it in our philosophies, in YouTube, in nature, stars, whatever. How do we feed it? We know how not to feed it. Hollywood. I'm so sorry to have opinion in this, but when I say Hollywood, I say the whole movie industry. Even if some movies out there are so brilliant, they're lazy. Do you need that synchronicity, really? Are you that a consumer of it, or are you a genius? What do you see in yourself? The drip? Aren't you not a sheep where the universe has to drip it into you? Chew it even? Digest it even because you're not capable? Or do you see yourself as, and understand this symbolically, as a Nostradamus or whatever grand inspirational figure or mythological hero? I use Nostradamus because in astrology that should be my idol. Yourself, who can do it. You don't need the Marvel superhero. I should not be saying. I know. I'm sorry, but you don't need that. You are that. You write your story, dream your poetry, dream your literature, dream your music. Okay, maybe not music, because music, it's your obligation to share music. If you're an artist, you need to share under Neptune and Pisces your music, regardless of who you are. So, okay, not music, but everything else, you create it for yourself. Of course, feed your muse. Feed your inner muse with the work of others. But share it with people who you love. not necessarily just one icon. But anyway, again, I'm so sorry to get into this, but you need to feed your soul, your emotion, your connection to the divine. You need to feed your spirit now very, very much. And food comes from also from other people. And I don't mean my work or spiritual work on available publicly. Your best friend, your family, your animal, your tree, your plant, whatever it is. You have love in your life. Love is the teacher. Love is everything. Love is the gateway. And again, when we see in each other the similarities that we are just another one, and we see within another person our own story, our own experiences, our own wounds, but also our own beauty and the vulnerability that our wounds gave us. That's where do you really need words and history and how your life was, how my life was, material situation, and that's where you just fall in love regardless of who that person is. As a soul, your soul with theirs, the love is there. And at this turbulent, very chaotic time, more so than ever, let me highlight all the good things in the sky. This is where Venus trine Jupiter. That's absolutely amazing. But then comes the cherry, Mercury trine Pluto. The decision. Taking back your power, figuring out finally your plan, knowing what it is that you need to do. Maybe you don't have all the numbers, yet I would also argue that Uranus with Mercury can give you the numbers. It can just there, numbers, figures, dates, facts, whatever, resources, friends, sponsor, whatever it is, it's there. But it's only there if you also take in the Sun opposing Saturn squaring Uranus. If you take in the truth of that, of where it is in your life that you need to change, who it is in your life that you need to leave behind, materially, physically, as a memory, as, for example, what does a cord cutting look like deeply emotionally when you feel like after that half a year period of trying to forget them, this person was never even part of my past. That means that the cord cutting was successful. This realizations, not only is our present different, our future unstable, our past is not the same again as it always was. It's not the same because we cut out that part of ourselves which still lives there. We remind it, we knock at its door. Look, I have to say Zen, come back to the present. That's over. This is what all of us will experience in leading up to the autumn, because it will be the autumn when we have to harvest. Let's not be overjoyed with the harvest, because we're harvesting the building materials for 2023, 2024, 2025. When Pluto has done its work in Capricorn, we have to be rebuilding, but Pluto will start its work in Aquarius. So that's where the mind will be purged. You see, as Pluto highlighted all of the political corruption in the world, and it displayed it out, dished it out by everything in the past 20 years, where there is no human being on the planet who in this day and age believes that the world of politics is exactly as it is. So this happened, collectively speaking, just not so long ago. You can imagine when Pluto purifies the corruption of the mind, of everything that we as human beings always, since our creation, thought wrong. So those are years which will even deeper quantum leap us into the future, because with a pure mind we can achieve, our technology becomes truly ethereal, truly miraculous, truly limitless, because love fuels it, and not need and not curiosity. And yes, so again, sorry for this other episode from a very, very distant future horoscope that I'm gonna be doing, hopefully, if I'm still around. And where I wanna go with this is that the quincunx is we need a lot of brainstorming, heart storming, and that leads to soul storming to do this week. But we're also finding our truth. We're also finding a lot of, as I said, knowing that we are not, and what doesn't resonate, and what we cannot accept, and what we cannot compromise. That's a big value. That's a big, big value, because we know how to choose that much easier. So thank you everyone for listening, and I do hope that this helped. I do hope that this prepares us a little bit for what is about to come. Thank you all so much for the love, for the support, for the kindness, for the generosity. And again, I must say, we must be very, very careful what it is that we allow to feed into our reality. So we need to choose our faith. We need to choose ourselves, but as I said, not in a selfish way. Ourselves, who is going to be an important part in the lives of others, of the collective in the future. We need to protect ourselves, and that's why we need to choose the self yet, as right now, because you don't know what that self that you're protecting and nurturing right now, what it's going to do in the future, how many people it will help, how many beautiful parts it will be an integrate element of, in any way, shape, and collectively, individually, and someone else, a wedding, a christening, so that is why you're choosing yourself now, and not in a selfish way, but in a way you're choosing the person who is gonna be a light in the lives of so many people, regardless of even if you're a hermit, animals, the divine, spirits, the plants who see you, because you're not really alone. If you're a hermit, you absolutely know this. So you're still someone who is needed. So you have to take care of yourself right now. The opposition of Sun and Saturn. The healthy taking care of yourself, including ego. Because you cannot stay egoless, because that's nothingness. A saint can do that, Christ can do that. But the rest of us need a canvas, a painting. We need our playful selves, North Node, Gemini in 2021. We need that. We need the innocence, we need the playfulness, we need the inner child to be our ego. Because the child doesn't care about who's better, what's better. The child is innocent and just wants the friendship. So this is why that inner child is what we're protecting right now. That is what we're saving. We are also feeding, because that will be the future us, who is going to be so grateful to the present us for being good and diligent parents. So again, sorry for the very long out row as well. So thank you again. Until next time. Bye for now.